You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I am a metallic creature wearing a Zack-sized skin suit.
No!
It's so rough.
I was worried about this. I was worried that one of us might be a werewolf, and no, it's not me.
It's just so... Since I have sucked all of the life and bones out of Zack and started wearing him around as a skin suit, like I was Vincent D'Onofrio's character from the movie The Men in Black, the Marvel comic Men in Black.
Yes, good comparison.
Fun fact: we gotta jump one layer into this joke for a second because I think about it every time. And I don't know if it's come up on this podcast. We've talked about Zack's wife, right? Because I'm not Zack. I'm a werewolf wearing a Zack skin suit. We all know that.
I presume she has noticed.
Oh, not at all.
Oh,
specifically, she knows who Vincent D'Onofrio is. Yet every time I say his name, and this has happened at least 10 times, she says, "Who's that?" And I have to say, he's the boyfriend from Mystic Pizza.
Oh, yes. You've told me about this. The boyfriend from Mystic Pizza.
Well, Zack's told you about it, I'm sure. I'm a werewolf.
Oh, that's true.
Zack's
that would make sense.
suit.
Yeah. You know, if you were Zack, I would recommend that you have some secret codes or something that you could use in this situation to make sure you're not a clone or a doppelganger or a robot, or in this case, a werewolf wearing a skin suit. Because, you should be able to tell the difference.
One thing I think about, and I think this is a good difference making thing.
Mm-hmm.
Zack was so gung-ho about getting a accessibility, like a brand new #1 boost after episode 1000. And you would anticipate that then the show would at least open up and then be approachable and relevant for people. And instead, it feels like the werewolf who was wearing the Zack skin suit has decided to do an extended and not all that funny bit to alienate any listeners who may be coming in. And I think that's a good sign that this is not Zack. This is an alien, not an alien. Werewolf, that's what I am. Werewolf wearing a Zack skin suit.
Yeah, to be clear, werewolves are not aliens. They are creations from Mojoverse that have been sent into our world. And I guess they first pop up in Excalibur Sword is Drawn, but we have some werewolf stories for you this week, folks. And so who do we have to thank for this request? I'm assuming that even though you're not Zack, you may still have access.
Oh, I still have access to all of his files. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
We're good, Adam.
Yeah.
It looks like Robert is to thank. If you want to be
Robert.
like Robert, who is quite a supporter of the show, you can go over to patreon.com/battleoftheatom, reach deep down into your hearts and pocketbooks, and toss a couple of coins into the coffers. And if you do that, Adam and the werewolf that's wearing the Zack skin suit will do a whole episode around something of your choice.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go through and be like, you can demand everything of us. We let you, as if you were the guy from Iron Chef, have a secret ingredient.
Oh, I like that. That's good. The secret ingredient.
Comparison. If I was just Zack, I would have never been able to come up with something that good. But because I'm from the TV world, the Mojoverse, now I have access to all of these jokes. I understand Alf now, which is phenomenal.
You're practically Melmacian.
Practically Melmacian.
Oh,
but you open up that, and then that is the secret ingredient for the episode. And Robert's secret ingredient is, of course, werewolves.
Yeah, so we're going to start with werewolf appearance from the very first 2 issues of Excalibur Volume 1.
Weird that this is the first time this is coming up on a podcast that's been going on for 1,003 X-Men stories.
Historically, we have not done a lot of Excalibur on this program, and yet this week and next, we have a lot of Excalibur content, so we're going to get into it. But yeah, we've done Sword is Drawn, which is sort of like the standalone introduction of this team, transitioning from the Captain Britain stories over into what becomes this ongoing. And so we have Chris Claremont writing, we have Alan Davis pencils, Paul Neary doing inks, and it's interesting, Sword is Drawn as kind of a standalone thing, but this first 2 issues are a really weird thing. Like, if you had not been reading Captain Britain, you might be a little baffled by what's happening here.
Well, and one thing that I think is important is if you had not been reading Captain Britain, then you were likely American,
Exactly.
The primary audience for this Marvel comic.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you could not, unless you were importing comics from jolly old England, you could not read those Captain Britain comics. So Chris Claremont read those Captain Britain comics. Chris Claremont loved those Captain Britain comics. Chris Claremont does not care that you have not read them.
No, and so he starts the very first page with a member of the Crazy Gang, Tweedledope, just hanging out, clomping on some garbage that eventually turns into Widget, and then immediately launches into this sort of slapstick tale of horror with the Warwolves going around and being inside people's bodies. I mean, the concept of a werewolf, for anybody that has never seen these characters, they're sort of humanoid, sort of dog. They have these like bird-like faces. They're completely silver, and they basically wear you. Like, they kill you and then they wear you as a skin suit, Buffalo Bill style. It is really scary when you actually think about it. But it's played both for horror and for laughs.
You know Moira McTaggart, right? I like to think, as a Brit,
yeah,
I say Brit, that's wrong. She's from Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
As a Scot, you know what? I think Brit is actually okay because Scotland's on the British Isles.
I think Scottish people might take offense to that.
They are English. They are British.
No,
I think that's right. Because, no, hold on. Because it's the United Kingdom.
Sure.
And then also Ireland. But Ireland is its own island next to the island of Britain.
Right. But do you think Scottish people think of themselves as British?
My understanding, as a werewolf wearing a Zack skin suit, is that, again, United Kingdom.
Right. Yeah.
Britain is the United Kingdom excluding Ireland.
Okay.
And by Ireland, I do, of course, mean Northern Ireland. We're not getting into it. Britain is England, Wales, and Scotland. But
the Welsh still think of themselves as Welsh, not British.
Yes, it's a subset. They are both.
You're getting so far away from your Moira joke.
Right, I'm sorry. Moira wore Sean Cassidy like a skin suit once.
Maybe it was Moira was part werewolf. Who knows?
She was a friend of Excalibur. I'm sure she picked up a few things.
Yeah. But
can we talk about this cover? Because I have always loved this cover.
Oh, great cover. Great team shot. And then you got the werewolves snickering on the bottom. It's fantastic.
Well, because that's the thing. It is set up as like this big, great superhero cover. Rachel looks phenomenal. That's Rachel Summers. By the way, this team's Captain Britain, Megan, Nightcrawler, Rachel Summers, Phoenix, and Shadowcat.
Yep.
All of which wearing the best clothes they've ever worn.
Mm-hmm. Great costumes.
With the potential exception of the Chris Pachalo Rachel costume. But even then, I would hear arguments both ways.
I don't know. Rachel is wearing some really fun fashion in these 2 issues. When she's not wearing her skin-tight leather hound suit with fire coming off of it.
The fire wings really do make the hound suit. Like, those need to come back.
Yeah. Looks great. But she's also wearing some really fun fashion in here with like, thigh high boots and mini skirts. And she just, I don't know. Of course,
she looks great. And what I was trying to get at is you get this great superhero shot, but then it's a joke. Like the Warwolves are pointing and laughing because this ends up being a very self-aware book.
Yeah, so we have normal superhero stuff like, oh, there's people being held hostage and Kitty and Rachel have to go save them. But then it all gets subverted because we now have the Warwolves coming in and starting to eat the cops. And so we get diverted from your normal superhero fare and we're planted back into very bizarre Captain Britain territory.
You get very bizarre Captain Britain territory. You also get the weird interpersonal dynamic between Brian and Megan and the love triangle between Brian, Megan, and Kurt Wagner.
Uh-huh.
And I like that because Kurt is very much a nice guy and he's like not trying to do anything, but also he is accepting the reality of, well, look, I get that she's Brian's girlfriend, but she is like hitting on me really hard and I need to put some firm boundaries here. But like it is in my nature to play off of this. And also she's quite young and immature, and I don't know how that power dynamic works. So like Kurt's going through like a lot of feelings right now, which is interesting.
Right, because we're all going to live in this lighthouse together. We're figuring some stuff out. Again, these are things that if you just picked up Excalibur 1 without having read a single Captain Britain story or Sword is Drawn, you probably needed to just kind of fill in some blanks for yourself as you're going through this, because you have not seen some of these X characters in a while.
Right.
And you're not necessarily familiar with the non-X characters that are joining this book. And then of course, because we have the Warwolves here, one of them just eats Kitty Pryde and you're like, whoa, what? How did that happen?
So that's the thing. There is the standard Excalibur farce content, like Kurt being in the bath and getting walked in on and being embarrassed by that. And then also there is a lot of Vor content and also reverse Vor, which I guess I should have known is a thing, but I've not been exposed to that in the past.
I mean, I'm not familiar with people that are excited about that, but there's this wild thing that happens in that the Warwolf, you get introduced to what the Warwolves do, and like, there's this such funny formalism about it, about like, oh, you guys need to pick these up. You got to respect your skin suit,
I love that. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Is that they are like, it does take, like, it is work to get a human skin suit. And as a werewolf, I'd like to respect my skin suit.
Yes. But what's great in the second issue is that while they're trying to rescue Kitty reverse Warwolves one of the Warwolves and eventually just emerges naked from the Warwolf.
Yep. And if it was anyone else but Alan Davis, I would feel away.
It's done in a way that it's not salacious. And it's, I don't know. I feel like the book does a really good job of kind of taking care of the character. Now, there are other opportunities that Alan Davis and Chris Claremont will take with this character later in this series that I don't think are as advised, but this particular one, I don't think is bad. It's just kind of like played for laughs more than anything else.
It is. I love the Kitty Warwolf. So we say the Kitty Warwolf. It's really a Rachel Warwolf because Kitty was wearing Rachel's clothes, because the Warwolves, why they're here is they are trying to get a contract from Rachel from an adventure that happened off screen that we don't really know about and got referenced in The Sword is Drawn. And Mojo's like, well, I want my investment back.
Yes.
In a very guy who had a contract with Kadalish signed for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know all the details about that. Sounds like she's doing much better now, but that's pretty much the vibe that you're getting from this. And Kitty dresses up as Rachel, gets captured, does some weird reverse Vor stuff to this Warwolf, and eventually escapes. All the Warwolves are taken care of, and Kitty has the perfect solution for these Warwolves, which is to put them in a zoo where they are watching TV.
Yeah. This conclusion is an interesting one, given that they are living sentient creatures and
It
are
is
placed into a zoo.
look.
There's some historical implications to that I don't love.
Look, on one hand, yes. On the other hand, this is the most Marvel Comics thing you could do in an issue 2 of a comic.
Oh, sure.
And I say that because that's what the Fantastic Four did in issue 2 of their comic.
Yes.
Reed Richards scrolls into cows. Is like,
whatever.
Go be cows now.
Yeah.
It's the same vibe.
Yes.
I get it. It's a fun, farcical thing. And what Alan Davis and Chris Claremont are asking you is, you know how we have this like serious dark X-Men? Don't worry about it. Turn off your brain for this one. Like,
yeah,
we're the silly fun here. We're having fun here. You can enjoy pretty Alan Davis art. You get Claremont soapy stuff, but this is them taking everything up a notch because Claremont has been doing X-Men for 13 years now, and he's kind of, I don't want to say he's bored, but Claremont always needs a new idea and a new thing. And this was him doing something different.
Yeah. And it also gives Alan Davis a chance to just stretch his legs. Him and Paul Neary are a fantastic combination. Just most artists can't necessarily show you a variety of different body silhouettes. And the fact that Alan Davis is capable of not only capturing who Kitty Pryde is, but then who Kitty Pryde is dressed up like Rachel, and who Kitty Pryde is dressed up like Rachel as inside the body of a werewolf is like, that's pretty impressive. So
there's a reason why Alan Davis, in very much the same way that Art Adams was the progenitor of like the 90s image stuff, Alan Davis really is the progenitor of the early 2000s widescreen comics. I mean, he's who Brian Hitch wanted to be.
Sure.
And that's what comics were for a hot minute.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Zach, I think we've talked a little bit about this.
I'm not
one.
Zach. I'm a
werewolf Zach. Sorry. Werewolf Zach.
No, Zach's the name of the skin suit. No one even asked me my werewolf name, which is honestly a little rude.
Do werewolves have names? They don't call each other by name. What's your name?
Name? Well, I mean, like, just names aren't really a big deal where I'm from.
Okay.
We have names, but it's just not something we worry about too much.
Okay. So what should I be calling you though?
For the Zach's fine.
Zach's, okay.
Zach's what I look like.
You seem like you got offended when I called you that.
It's just you assumed it. You assumed that my name was Zach, and we hadn't had this discussion.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm just meeting
if I'm keeping up this pretense and I'm going to be hosting this podcast with you for a while, we need to set some ground rules, and I think that's just appropriate to do.
Sounds
if we're going to have a good working relationship.
So Zach, not Zach.
Just Zach. Zach's fine. We can use Zach. It's just we need to have the conversation about it. Probably should have done it off mic, but it's okay. It's okay. We're moving on.
Given that you have access to Zach's files, are you aware of the big old list and what our show is all about?
And thank you for asking. I am aware of the big old list, what the show is all about. The thing about this podcast that I've come to understand is that it is all about ranking a bunch of different X-Men stories from best to worst. It seems that there have been 1,002 X-Men stories ranked from best to worst, with the best being the House of X Powers of 10, the 250th best being X-Force 1-2, A Force to be Reckoned With, the 500th best being Generation X 24, Home for the Holidays, Marvel Team Up Volume 3, number 19 as the 750th best. What is that one? I don't know. The 1,000th best, quote, X-Men story is Phantom X Max. Oof, indeed. And the worst X-Men story of all time, 2099, World of Tomorrow. This one's pretty good. I think this breaks the top 250.
Well, we have Alan Davis's return, Excalibur 41-47, all the way up at 77. We have Excalibur, the Sword is Drawn at 53. I would argue this goes between those two. This is pretty dang good comics. And it's a wild sort of idiosyncratic debut to a series that's going to go all over the place and fail in a variety of different ways. But as of right this moment, as it starts, it's about as perfectly formed as it can be, you know?
I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah.
And I feel like, as I'm saying this out loud, I know what the answer that I would give is.
Mm-hmm.
Is this better than Astonishing X-Men 13 to 18 Torn? I think it is.
Which arc is Torn?
The third one with the babe where Kitty thinks she had a baby, but it was really Cassandra Nova messing with her head.
Oh no, this is better than that.
This is probably better than X Club, isn't it? Like, we don't have X Club without this.
No. I would put this probably above Chamber 1 to 4 at 59. The art is amazing.
Yes. I would put this below. 55 is Cable Past Fears, a comic I truly adore and have been thinking about a lot recently. And I don't think it goes that high.
Yeah,
but
I
right
wouldn't.
above Chamber, we have Magneto Testament.
Yep.
And I want to avoid all comparisons to that, given that this is a silly comic and that one's not.
That's a very serious comic. Yeah.
That's not fun for us to do the comparison on. The last arc of X-Men Legacy, for We Are Many, and Bendis's first arc of All New X-Men.
I mean, my personal preference is still probably the first 5 issues of All New. So I would probably slot it right below that.
Great. Let's do that.
All right, great. So this is going to be our new 57 is the first 2 issues of Excalibur. This next one we have, Zach, I had never heard of this. This is very strange.
Well, the thing that I would have to ask you, Adam,
yes,
is that did you collect the Ultra X-Men Wolverine trading card set from 1996?
I did not, but I guess I've seen some of the artwork because the cover of this is one of those cards, is it not?
Adam, the cover of this is one of those cards, yes. Have I you know about Marvel Comics, right?
I've heard of them, yes.
I would venture a guess that 1996 was because they go bankrupt in 97, right? 96 is probably the peak coked up Marvel era. Like, they're doing whatever.
We're selling furniture, right?
They aren't selling furniture till like 99.
Oh, okay. So we're not there yet. We're still in sort of the good days.
This is the high ballin' jazz age of Marvel. Yeah. And by jazz age, I mean everything they did sucked and was bad. But they kept doing these X-Men trading card sets that kept working. They'd spent all of this money on Fleer. One of people bring up why Marvel went into bankruptcy, by the way. And they'll use the comics and the fallout of the comics market as a big reason for that. And that was obviously impactful to them, but far from the big driver of it. The truly insane investment strategy that Marvel as a publicly traded company had, including purchasing Fleer for gobs of money without a real business plan to
not smart
anything, as well as their entry into the distribution business, were much larger contributing factors to their bankruptcy. Their Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which was really a restructuring of the organization, partly led by Ike Perlmutter and the other Toy Biz guys to get the company that they wanted out of it, which did not involve Fleer. Say all that to say they were doing whatever they felt like in 1996, including releasing this trading card set where the back of every trading card was a panel or a 1/9 of a comic book.
Yes.
So that when you put it in a binder, the way that it's laid out is that so when you put them 1 to whatever in a binder, when you flip the binder page over, you have a page of comics.
This is so nerdy. This is so nerdy because that was the first way you could get this comic, was literally by collecting a set of trading cards, right? And then
every trading card, by the way.
If you wanted the backup story, which is a one-pager about Wolverine wearing different costumes, you had to get the hollow foil cards. So you couldn't even get like the entire comic without the entire thing. And then there was also a mail away edition from Fleer and a wizard version, which you could get, which was signed by Boris Vallejo, who did the covers. So, man, this is weird. This is Wolverine Special 102.5, written
Wolverine Special 102.5, The Claw.
So, Slay Per View is the name of the story. Written by Dan
We've got the hottest tracks here in Mojo World.
And on paper, this should work. It is penciled and inked.
We're here for your drive time commute. I'm done.
This should work. It's penciled and inked by Marc Buckingham of Generation X fame.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Generation X? That's your go-to Marc Buckingham?
What's your go-to?
I mean, Miracle Man.
Okay. But
probably Miracle Man, Sandman, Fables. Fables is probably the big one for most people.
Yeah, I don't read
Did
those.
Marc Buckingham do any Generation X?
Isn't Marc Buckingham like Chris Bachalo's inker for Gen X? Or am I thinking of the wrong person?
No, you're right. He does. Yeah, because he also inks Death, the High Cost of Living.
Yeah, he's Chris Bachalo's like guy for a really long time.
Okay, but he also did Fables, which was a really popular comic.
Yeah, but I don't read
Miracle Man. I also didn't read Fables.
I'm not reading that.
Take the Bill Williams hand.
This is an X-Men podcast, Zach, so I know about the X-Men. And Marc Buckingham,
you know what?
I know because he inked Chris Bachalo comics for a long time.
You know,
so
I'm looking at like Marc Buckingham's two big things are Miracle Man and Fables. So Marc Buckingham has been catching a lot of strays recently.
You'd think maybe
just like he's
anyway.
Poor guy.
Anyway, Marc Buckingham has definitely shown over the years that he's an extremely talented artist. Seen his work on Shade the Changing Man, Ghost Rider 2099, wide variety of different things. This comic, it looks bad.
This comic doesn't look good. It also doesn't read good, which is so upsetting.
What is it? 15 pages? It's very short.
Pages. So part of the challenge for Buckingham on this is that they want him to do a comic that can be split up into 9 panel grids, but not do a 9 panel grid comic because you didn't do grids. It was 1996.
Yes.
So everything has to be framed in a way that it can stand alone as the back of a trading card, and it just doesn't work.
No, I mean, you can kind of see like a 9 panel grid, I guess in theory, like the first issue of okay, so let's talk about the story of this. The story is that Wolverine, this is like no nose, no adamantium, being trained by Elektra back to humanity Wolverine, right? Like this is right after issue 100. And so he is taken to the Mojoverse. Mojo 2 has apparently
the obligatory sequel.
Yeah, has gone back on his promise of, no more television entertainment, gladiatorial combat or whatever, and is making Wolverine fight Warwolves who are dressed up as all of his greatest villains.
Now, speaking as a werewolf.
Yes.
That's not how that works.
I was also thinking about that because he's fighting characters like Deadpool and Shiva, but Those aren't...
Shiva's a robot. Shiva don't got skin. We're talking about Shiva from the Shiva scenario.
Yeah. And Deadpool, like, these characters are still alive. Like, they weren't killed by Warwolves. So
the Thing and Hulk have not been taken over by Warwolves.
No.
Dirtnap. I don't know which one of my Warwolf colleagues got to be Dirtnap, the rat with a smiley face on his back that Wolverine doesn't like.
Dirtnap is in this comic, yes.
Dirtnap in this comic. They just fight. I mean, it's an early Dan Slott comic, and say what you will about Dan Slott. I've said worse, I'm sure. Dan Slott can be a competent and sometimes very good comic book writer. His Silver Surfer with Mike Allred is truly phenomenal. Like, but this is early Slott. This is one of the first things he has fully done. It is not very good.
No, and unfortunately, the other through line to this is not just, this like dumb savage Wolverine scraping it up with these villains just because, that's what you want on the back of a trading card is Wolverine fighting with the villain, I guess, is that we are getting a follow-up to X-Men 10 and 11 with Dazzler and Longshot, who are raising the X-Babies. And it's a little bit annoying to me that Dazzler is being put into this position of sort of like the stay-at-home mom. Like when we last saw her in Longshot, they were like revolutionaries who had freed their entire world. And now the X-Babies, who don't really need a parent.
They are the X-Men, but babies.
Right. And now, they're being put into these like sort of sitcom-y mom and dad roles. I don't like it. And I hate that it gets followed up on later in, what is that? Magneto War? No, Eve of Destruction, right? We get the Dazzler update. I hate that.
No, we get the Dazzler update. I don't know when we get a Dazzler update. We get a lot of Dazzler updates throughout time. They didn't really know what they were doing with Longshot and Dazzler for a while. No. They were kind of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And actually, real talk, they've never known what to do with Longshot pretty much since Annie Nocenti got her hands on him, which was how he was created. I love Claremont Outback era, but let's not pretend that Longshot is in the top 6 characters of that era. He may be the worst member of that team. And it's a stacked team, I get it, but he may be the worst member of that team.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to say he absolutely is. He's number 9 out of 8.
Just so that our listeners are not worried, they do defeat the signal of this show with help from the X-Babies and Longshot and Dazzler, and Wolverine is returned back to training with Elektra. There's a 1-pager where we get to see, like, it's an actual 9 grid drawn by Ringo, Michael Ringo. So it's really nice.
Beautiful work by Ringo.
Is, drawing Wolverine in a variety of his costumes. And,
little Wolvie.
Yep, little Wolvie. And it's cute.
It's like X-Baby Wolvie.
Yeah. And that's about it. So I can see why someone might find the appeal of this through the trading card version of this, or like the idea of a mail away that you get from Fleer or from Wizard Magazine. But boy, just reading it on its own, it's pretty terrible.
It is not good.
Yeah.
So it would not make me want to read Wolverine 103.
Well, I mean, if you were just reading...
Wolverine 103 is pretty good.
Yeah, if you were...
I'm trying to remember. Wolverine 103 rules, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the best noseless Wolverine.
If you were reading regular Wolverine, like, I don't know, like, would this have come out onto newsstands? I feel like you would have had to have mailed away or gotten
You would have had to mail away. Also, Larry Hama didn't write it, so he didn't care.
Exactly. So it is what it is. I think at the very highest, I don't know. We
have Wolverine 103 on here. I'm almost certain.
Wolverine 98 to 100, Furnace of His Mind, Anvil of His Heart is down at 884. This is clearly worse than
it is. And just to be clear, Wolverine 102 and 103, which is Wolverine training with Elektra, which this comic takes place right in the middle of. That's at 769. And
I like those. I like those issues. Those are fun.
Because we had mentioned it, I wanted to make sure that we all recognized, yes, this is worse. This is okay. Where's the friggin' tie-in comics to things? There's a chunk of them somewhere.
Is this better or worse than that Alf issue we talked about last episode 956? I feel like this is worse.
Yeah, I mean that Alf issue there is more competence in reading comprehension in that Alf issue. That Alf issue is just deeply unfunny.
Yeah.
Is it better than X-Force Shatterstar?
I mean, no. I don't like X-Force Shatterstar.
So. Is it weird that Rob Liefeld just did a sequel to X-Force Shatterstar like recently?
Yeah, it is very strange. And
did you read any of Deadpool Team Up? I flipped through it.
I did not. Is this the comic where he revealed that Commander
where
X was him?
Rob Liefeld is not Major X, he is Commander X.
It's Commander X, yes.
Commander X, which is a different colored Power Ranger of Major X. I've been threatening to do a Major X episode for a while, and I do think that now that there is a nice bow wrapped up on Major X and no one will ever use him again.
Oh, Zach, hold on. Did you see the promo art for the X-Men 3K that are coming in Jed McKay's X-Men? Because it sure looks like there's a character that's basically just Major X in a garbage bag.
Hold on. No, that's not Major X in a garbage bag.
Sure looks like Major X in a garbage bag.
It's doing.
Looks like Major X in a garbage bag. Anyway,
it doesn't not look like Major X in a garbage bag, but it's absolutely not Major X in a garbage bag. The body type is all wrong. It doesn't have the head wings.
In a garbage bag. How can you tell his body type?
Warwolves, no. Anyway,
better or worse than X-Force Shatterstar?
It's worse than X-Force Shatterstar. X-Force Shatterstar has the pterodactyl thing.
Yeah, this is
worse than Multiple Births.
Yep.
And worse than the Sisterhood arc. I would say that this is better than Storm the Arena at 975.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. It's not as racist as the first Banshee appearance in X-Men 28, though it does have Cyclops wearing a Native American headpiece in the last one shot.
It on one hand, yes. On the other hand, it was 1996. That was very accepted and culturally, like, not even called out stuff in 96. Like it wasn't like saying, oh, they did blackface because that was normal in the 20s. No, that was like everyone knew that was offensive and they did it anyway. Wearing that stuff wasn't part of the general conversation. I'll say that about as a defense.
It is not aged well. All right,
it hasn't aged well. Also, as I say that, the Banshee thing is racist, but it's racist for stuff that people weren't being racist about at the time the Banshee thing came out, which is so wild to me.
Here's a question for you. At 972, we have Deadpool versus X-Force.
Deadpool versus X-Force has Pepe Larraz's art, though.
Pepe Larraz's art. It looks a lot better. Does have Deadpool, trying to stop people from killing Hitler, and Deadpool as a Confederate soldier. It's not great.
Look, I don't love it. It's kind
of offensive, so...
I don't love it. It does have Pepe Larraz's art. That is another comic that Rob Liefeld was supposed to do.
Amazing. That would have been crazy. Okay. This is on par with the Warlock Wakes at 973.
Adam, can you explain anything about the Warlock Wakes, or in your mind, is it yet another Silver Age X-Men comic that doesn't matter?
They stop him by Jean wrapping a cape around him. That's all.
Oh, that's that one?
Yeah.
Is that where they get scooters? They get hover scooters?
I think so. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, so this
was that the Yogi, the yoga one? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I don't know. So this is our new 973 Wolverine Special Volume 1, 102.5.
The Claw.
Sleep review. Okay, we're gonna do something a little bit more current, and that is
you say current. This comic is nearly 6 years old.
I know, it's crazy, right? Excalibur Volume 4. So this is the Teeny Howard Marcus Toe series, number 7 and 8, which basically is like a British fox hunt, but for Warwolves.
That's what it is. Apocalypse needs werewolf skulls to do a spell.
Yeah, he's piecing together the portal to Ayako, essentially.
Here's the thing. And this is you had mentioned Marcos Toe. He does a little bit of the last issue, but Wilton Santos does most of these 2 issues.
Yes, that is true.
Here's the thing about Apocalypse, specifically Krakoa and Apocalypse. There was a lot of discussion. We got into this during the Crucible story when we ranked that. There was a lot of discussion about how like the X-Men are like on his side and he's good now. No, he's not. The entire time Apocalypse is working with the X-Men, he is simply not trying to actively murder them and still doing all of his normal stuff.
Yeah, he's kind of just doing his own thing, and what that means is, hey, I'm going to kill a lot of people and build a mystical doorway in the ground so I can maybe get back to my wife.
That's all Apocalypse is doing. Like, I know that now with rose-colored glasses and also the fact that this stuff got de-emphasized, frankly, post 2020, when kind of the political culture of the world shifted and having Krakoa be a mutant paradise was a more appealing storytelling thing than being the weird, complex place that it was. But like, Krakoa wasn't good. Like, it wasn't inherently purely good, and that was what was interesting about it.
Yes,
and Excalibur gets to play with
that
it.
way. It's designed to be.
That's the story. That's the
yes.
tension.
Yes.
And this book gets a lot out of that, especially with Apocalypse.
It does. Apocalypse is just sort of a background figure in these 2 issues, though, because the pursuit of these skulls takes the Excalibur team. Now, this is for folks who have not read Excalibur Volume 4. This is the Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain. We have Richter, who is kind of like Apocalypse's mentee, like druid style.
He also has a crush on Apocalypse, and Apocalypse is letting him.
Yes.
Apocalypse does not reciprocate this, by the way. Apocalypse is just letting him have a crush on him, which I find very interesting.
And then the team is rounded out by Rogue, Gambit, and Jubilee. We also get appearances in these 2 issues from Exodus and what's his name? Pete Wisdom. So the story is that Cullen Bloodstone has these werewolves. And where did he get them, Zach?
The zoo.
He got them from the zoo. He bought the werewolves from the zoo, from the story we were just talking about moments ago, and now is going to do a, like I said, kind of like a British dog hunt, aristocracy, whatever, except turns out he's also like really anti-mutant. So like, is he using this as an excuse to hunt the mutants? It's complicated.
So were you familiar with Cullen Bloodstone before these issues? Like, had you?
No, I'd never seen this character before.
He's a character that first appears in I want to say first appears, I think this is right, in Avengers Arena.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
That's his big spotlight. It was a creation by Dennis Hopeless, named after Cullen Bunn, who he's good friends with.
Oh, how nice. He's the younger brother of Elsa Bloodstone.
And he's an interesting... Avengers Arena is an interesting book. I don't know how good it is because I haven't read it since it first came out, but I enjoyed it at the time. It's imminently readable and is taking a big swing, but people don't like it because it breaks their precious little babies that they made Tumblr pages for.
Yes.
So I get that. But Avengers Arena has this character, and he is a darker but generally heroic character in this. In that, what Howard does with him is very interesting because she's using him as a symbol of the British aristocracy as a counterpoint to her protagonist character, Betsy, who grew up the exact same way, who, like, This is the dark mirror of Betsy, or what her life could have been, living in the shadow of her more successful older sibling, even though Betsy's more popular. Brian is positioned as the more successful one.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think Brian's here, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
I do.
And on one hand, I think I think that's a really interesting pull. The more distance I have from Excalibur, and the more I'm able to think on what it was doing, the more I appreciate how smart this run of Excalibur was. I like a lot of what's happening here.
I do too. Unfortunately, Wilton Santos is doing okay. It's not terrible artwork, but I try to speak up for Marcus Toe as often as I possibly can. I just think that Marcus is one of those underrated artists that people do not realize just how talented he is at storytelling on the page. And when he kicks back in issue number 8, you see such a vast improvement to the storytelling that it's just, God, he's so missed on those other issues. I think that would amp up these things, because it's not that Santos is doing a bad job, but
No,
his version of the Warwolves is really weird, and not
they're dudes, right?
They're just like guys walking around with the werewolf heads instead of the more fully fledged, more dog-like creatures that Alan Davis created. And it doesn't work. It's unfortunate.
That's an unfortunate part of this comic. I would agree. Santos is doing fine fill-in work, but it is not elevating the rest of the issue. I do think there's some nice choices. Betsy Braddock is shown in her pajamas, and she says, "I wanted something comfortable to sleep in." And Cullen said, "I could raid the drawers." She is wearing a full-length white sleeping gown, like it's
Yeah.
like it's an adaptation of a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah.
Buck wild.
Yep.
So I like Santos, just not my. I agree. Toe does a couple of pages at the end that are really phenomenal. The other interesting thing that happens here that I think Howard is playing with is that Cullen Bloodstone is a queer character, is being villainous, and is specifically using his sexuality in his sexual orientation to mess with Richter.
Yes.
And be villainous in a way that villains normally are. He's playing the femme fatale role somewhat,
mm-hmm.
with a different power dynamic and all this stuff. It's a take that I remember at the time getting some heat, but also this is representation means that, how do I want to say this?
No, what you're trying to say is that when you have actual representation in your stories, that means that characters from a wide variety of different backgrounds, communities, etc., get a chance to be heroes, villains, liked, anti-heroes, whatever it might be. I'm assuming that's what you're saying.
It's the I support women's wrongs kind of thing as well. That's the same energy, same vibe, same thing that is being brought to the table here. Is people can be messy, and just because you are a marginalized group doesn't make you perfect. Doesn't mean that you have to be a model representation in all things. Again, very easy for me, a werewolf wearing a cis straight white guy's skin suit, to say. But I respect it more. I'm looking at this from the outside and saying, okay, what's the messy thing that Howard is doing? Because Howard really does like to dive into the mess, and not all of it works for me. On her run of Excalibur, I think when it's not in these issues, but when it gets into the actual King Arthur stuff,
mm-hmm.
I start to trail off a bit. But generally, we've said it before. What Krakoa lets you do is take a big swing and do stuff that wasn't done before. And this stuff wasn't done before. It's fun. The character dynamics are great. I love Gambit being the quote unquote voice of reason.
Yep.
And mostly being the guy saying, y'all see that Apocalypse is doing evil things, right?
And we're his henchmen.
We are doing Apocalypse's job for him.
Yeah.
What are we doing this for?
Yeah.
Love it.
I have you know, a fondness for these, you know, obviously these first 2 and odd years of Krakoa stuff. I do think these 2 issues are not necessarily as strong as the ones that came before it and the couple that will come immediately after it.
Right.
Because this is obviously what Teeny needed to do to complete the little recipe that was concocted for the portal that is going to be developed to lead us into Ten of Swords. So it feels a little bit grocery checklisty, you know, as opposed to really investing in these characters. But there is still a lot of great character work that's happening here along the way. So I appreciate all.
We also haven't mentioned the most important thing that happens, and that is at the last 2 pages, Betsy gives her girlfriend, Rachel Summers, a pet werewolf.
Yes. Which
they are not dating, quote, quote, quote,
no.
at this point on page.
Mm-hmm.
But they're super dating.
Yes.
And I know that Howard and Williams had to go to the mat for those characters to have them like actually date. And I know that the entire office and community of writers was behind them on that. And I'm glad that they got that through. And even if they never did, everyone would be able to point to this page and say, friends don't do that.
Well, it also serves as an important bargaining thing with Apocalypse because Betsy is saying, hey, you wanted us to eliminate this species. I'm telling you, you got your skulls, back off. I'm keeping this one and giving it to my girlfriend, you know? And it's like, okay, we're putting some boundaries around the bad guy. Because we do actually know that he's a bad guy, even if we're trying to support what he's doing.
It's creating tension. Krakoa threw all of the X-Men's worst villains and put them as their neighbors. I understand that sometimes people don't like uncomfortableness in their comics and want their superheroes to be good and want Spider-Man to be a 45-year-old dad with a loving wife who stays at home and takes care of their 2.5 babies and all that because they've grown up and they want to see themselves reflected in that. And they want the nostalgia for when they were kids in their Spider-Man underoos eating freaking cereal on Saturday morning or whatever. But instead of that, you could be better and tell interesting, complex stories that have a lot going on and are ambiguous about what the right answer is. And it's so refreshing to go see stuff like that because it really did. The more I look back on that era, the more I'm like, no, actually, that wasn't hype. I was right. This was a complete vibe shift in what these comics could be. And I appreciate that even with a lesser attempt like these 2 issues.
So down at 312, we have the issue from this run, Excalibur 20, which reveals the true name of Malice, Alice McAllister. I do think these 2 issues are probably better than that, but not much better.
I think they are better than it. I think they're in a solid chunk of better. Like these are getting into good if you are an X-Men reader level. That's what I would say. Like these are not. We have 10 of Swords like in the top 15. 10 of Swords. Well, no. 10 of Swords is impossible if you're not an X-Men reader. But I would call 10 of Swords a good story, like just flat out.
Yeah.
Where this is good X-Men story.
Sure.
If that distinction makes sense.
But I don't think it's as good as at 305. We have Hellions 9 to 11 funny games. I think I would put that ahead of this.
That's probably true. I would say yes, but I'm putting this above Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut because I don't actually think Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut is much more than a good title and John Romita Jr.
You know what? I'll allow it. I have higher opinions of that story, but you know, I'm feeling nostalgic about my Krakoa days all the time. So this is our new 306.
Constantly thinking back and being like, you know what?
We had it good. We had it good.
You're going to miss this. You're going to want this back. You're going to wish these days hadn't gone by so fast.
Well, Tommy B doesn't. Anyway.
We're not. No, we can't. Mojo will be mad at me.
Okay. All right, so that was Warwolves. We have to thank Robert again. Thanks, Robert.
Robert, thank you so much. I think Zack's sad that he had to give his life for this.
So sad.
But it made for a great episode. And a lot of fun, a lot of laughs that were had today. If you want to be like Robert, why don't you go on over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom, reach deep down into your heart's pocketbooks, coins, coffers, do the thing. $5.
Do that thing.
$5. Listen, inflation, it's going rampant. Eggs, insane pricing. When you feed a family like the werewolf wearing Zack's skin as a skin suit you see that the bulk price of eggs is getting ridiculous.
It is.
But do you know what inflation hasn't hit?
Not us. It hasn't hit us. $5.
Inflation has not hit Battle of the Atom in a good 5 to 6 years. And the only reason it hit 5 to 6 years ago is because the system broke and more money had to be applied to fix the system.
Yes.
As a barrier.
But we're good now. This is it.
We're good. In fact, all of us could use a few more systems breaking. So some of us are holding the line at $4.99 and 1 cent. And that's Battle of the Atom. So why don't you support your local podcast? Or don't. I don't know. You got to buy eggs too. I get it.
Sure.
Adam, what do you got going on?
Well, over at Comics XF, I have taken over I've reluctantly taken over with our good pal Austin Gorton the coverage of the Gail Simone Uncanny. So if anyone
is that book any good? I'm
not a fan, but I am covering it to detail every shocking and baffling decision being made there. So please tune into my coverage of that as that book comes out. Folks can always find us online at Adam Rec on Blue Sky and Instagram for updates on the show. And Zack, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we are going to have a great episode talking about Megan from Excalibur. Hey. And hey, guess what? Anna's going to be here.
That is right.
Anna Papard's going to be here. Dr. Anna Papard. I'm excited about that. I haven't talked to Anna I texted her 3 days ago. So then
I was going to say, it's probably not that long ago.
No, she wrote an article and I texted her. I said, I liked this article. Good job, Anna.
Yeah, it is a good article.
But before then, folks, the reason why we didn't have an episode last week is because Zack had an HVAC convention and lost his voice talking about HVAC and some of the latest and greatest innovations in dedicated outdoor air systems. If you are purchasing those, you are able to contact me, and I'll put you in touch with our local rep and give you a selection. It'll be great. But found out that his HVAC convention was in the same place as Megacon.
Oh, right. Yes, Megacon.
Which is a comic convention in Orlando, Florida.
Yep.
I just emailed the organizer and said, hey, yo, can I get a press pass? And they were like, sure, here you go. Super easy. So had a chance to go out to the last day of Megacon, talk to some folks. So we have a star-studded lineup of Greg Land, Marc Guggenheim, Ben Percy, Craig Kyle, David Pepose, Chris Condon, Ryan Stegman, Zeb Wells, and David Nakayama telling us what their favorite X-Men story or thing that they've worked on is, period, in celebration of our 1000th ranking.
That's fun. I'm glad you did this. It is fun.
I'm glad.
Stay tuned. It's coming right after this.
Stay tuned. But until next week, this has been Battle of the Atom, and we hope you survived the experience. Why did I say that? There's more content. Stick around. We're just not going to do an outro after that. It's just going to be done.
Well, there'll be music at the end. I'll put the music.
Oh yeah, just put the music drop. Anyway, go hear what Greg Land has to say. So here with Greg Land. Greg, how we doing today?
Doing good. How's everybody out there?
Doing great. Now, Greg, just one quick question for you. You've drawn a heck of a lot of X-Men stuff. What's your personal favorite that you've gotten a chance to work on over the years?
Well, I guess I'd have to start out with the very first one I did for Marvel, the Phoenix Ensign. Mm-hmm. The shot of Phoenix on that first cover is kind of iconic.
It's standing right behind you on your poster.
That's even my big poster sign. Yes,
well,
sir.
Good. It's one that we've enjoyed. Greg, you having a good show?
It's a very good show. Very
awesome.
good show.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
All right, we're here at Megacon with Ben Percy. Ben, how's the show going for you today?
Show's fantastic. Enjoying interacting with all the fans.
Well, good. Well, Ben, we're going around asking creators, we just ranked our 1000th X-Men story. We're curious, what's your favorite X-Men story that you've done?
My favorite story is The Old Mutant and the Sea, which is a Wolverine story that's very simple and primal in nature and has to do with Logan hunting down a sea monster.
See, I don't think people who just know Ernest Hemingway by reputation realize how much The Old Man and the Sea fits as a Wolverine comic. It's mostly about a guy punching a shark.
That's right. And testing himself.
Absolutely.
And recognizing, sort of like so you can read it the dangers of the universe, this toothy universe that surrounds us, and the cold indifference of it, and trying to make your mark on it and survive and do the best you can with the time you have.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. Well, Ben, hope you have a great show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we got Chris Condon here. Chris, how's Megacon going for you?
It's amazing.
Well,
fantastic.
Good. Now, Chris, as you know, we're going around asking creators, what is your favorite X-Men thing that you have gotten a chance to write?
Well, I'm really fortunate that I'm able to write Ultimate Wolverine, and that is also the only X-Men thing that I've written. But it's an absolute joy to get to write snicked on a page and actually get to see it in print. It's a joy to write this character Wolverine and to do him in a unique, different way that nobody's ever seen before, and pay homage to stories that I love like Weapon X. It's just a dream come true.
I'm sure it was a joy to kill classic X-Men characters and just get everybody real worked up over it. I know that's always fun. No one overreacts about those things.
A bunch of people have come by the table and have said, I can't forgive you.
That's a lot, man.
But you know what? You got to do what you got to do.
Hey, you know what? You pulled a good story out of it, and I think that's all anyone really needs.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Here with Craig Kyle. Craig, how's the show going for you?
Show's going great. It's been a fantastic Megacon.
Good. Wait, we are going around asking creators. Done a heck of a lot of work in the X-Men world. Between evolution, between some of your comics work with X-Force, X-23, all that. What's the favorite thing you've done?
Well, I'm very biased in this, but my favorite book to date is the first series I ever put out there with Chris Yost and Billy Tan, and that's X-23 Innocence Lost. And the close second would be the follow-up Target X with Mike Choi and Sonia Obach and Chris Yost.
That's awesome. Those are ones that I think a lot of people are big fans of, and obviously Laura's had some staying power.
She's grown beyond what I would have ever imagined for her, to say the least.
Well, good. Well, hey, Craig, thank you so much. We're here with David Pepose. David, how are we doing today? How's Megacon?
It's going great. This has been such a wonderful show. The fans have been incredible. I love it. It's great to be back.
So we are asking creators going around. We just ranked our 1000th X-Men comic on our list.
Wow! So congratulations.
Thank you. I know it means a lot to everybody that we do this service to the entire community. But wanted to ask you, as a official X-Men writer at this point, what is your favorite X-Men comic that you've gotten a chance to write?
Yeah.
Tough one, I know.
Besides the fan fiction inside my head, Cable Love and Chrome #4. I'm very excited for people to get to read that one. We've got some really cool time travel shenanigans going on with Marvel's most extreme X-Man. So I'll be sure to tell you.
That's Adam. That's his uncle, I think. That's a different. He has that trademarked.
That's true. Most extreme with an E.
I'll allow it.
But yes, I'm very excited for that one. We're going to be bending the limits of time and space in a really cool way. So be sure to tell your local comic shop to pre-order and get Cable Love and Chrome #2 hitting comic shops everywhere this Wednesday.
Awesome, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we got David Nakayama. David, how are we today?
Doing great. Thanks for coming.
Good. Now, David, real quick, easy question for you. You've worked on a heck of a lot of X-Men covers, heck, even some interiors back in the Big Hero 6 days.
Yes, sir.
What's your favorite thing you've gotten a chance to work on?
Oh, it's impossible, but what hits what that makes me think of right away is an upcoming thing that I cannot say by name. But you know how Marvel is doing a spotlight series for the best X-Men characters? There's been Psylocke, there's been Storm, there's been Phoenix.
Yep.
Well, it's at that level. We're about to drop a brand new series on you guys with one of the most popular X characters there is, and I will be drawing covers for it, and I cannot wait to show you.
Well, we cannot wait to see it. David, thank you so much.
Okay.
Here with Marc Guggenheim. So, Marc, here at Megacon, question we're asking creators. You've done a heck of a lot of stuff in the X-Men world. What's your favorite?
That I've done, I'd probably say X-Men Gold number 30.
Number 30?
Yeah, the Kitty Pryde, Colossus, ill-fated wedding.
I want to ask about that if you got a second.
Sure.
I'm just curious, because my understanding, and I'm not a guy in the room, I've just seen some of the inside baseball stuff, is that that wasn't the original plan. That kind of came up at a retreat. I'm curious, what changed your mind on that?
Well, honestly, I wasn't even at the retreat, so my mind was changed for me. I basically got a phone call from Marc Panici, the editor, and said, so listen, this retreat happened, and this idea came up, and this is what we want to do. And I said, okay, because that's when you work in a shared universe, you don't always get to call all the shots. So I just sort of approached it as like a really interesting writing challenge, and because I told Marc, I'm like, can I get some extra pages for this issue, because I'm going to need as much sort of real estate to turn the tanker truck around. But I was super happy with the way it turned out.
I would say, and I'd have to look at the actual list, I believe that is the top rank of your run that we have on there. It's a comic I really enjoy.
Oh,
personally.
Cool. Well, thank you. I hope it's not too far down on the list of 1,000.
No, 30's not too far down on the list of 1,000. I can tell you that.
Okay, cool. Okay, good to hear.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we're here with Ryan Stegman. Ryan, I've heard that you are bad boy of X-Men artists. One of the big names out there. You are doing the current X-Men book right now. We're going around, we're asking creators, what is the favorite thing from an X-Men perspective that you've gotten a chance to work on?
Well, I mean, obviously launching an X-Men #1 is, a career highlight, so it has to be.
It's like you and Jim Lee and Jack Kirby. That's a pretty good group of folks to be with.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it would be hard not to say that, but I'm enjoying doing it. So
that's awesome. I think a lot of you folks are enjoying what you're putting down. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Here with Zeb Wells. Zeb, how's the show going for you?
Fantastic.
Good. So we're going around asking creators. You worked on a heck of a lot of X-Men stuff over a lot of years. What is your favorite thing that you've gotten a chance to do?
Well, I've liked all of it. New Mutants was super fun, working with Nick Lowe over there and all those great artists, but there was nothing like the Krakoa era for me. It was during the pandemic, and we all bonded on a Slack channel, and I think all of our books became better for being able to run ideas past each other. And then I was just such a fan of what Jonathan was doing with House of X and Powers of 10. I got that right for once in my life, I think. And
you got it right.
Yeah,
you're good.
Getting to work with Jonathan, I went back and looked at some of my old story documents, and he always had 2 or 3 ideas that I wish were mine that were in Hellions, like little character terms or whatnot, So just being able to work with him, he was a great leader too. He was a great collaborator and a great leader of the team. So that has so many special connotations, and I think the book turned out good.
I think it is one that a lot of people look back very fondly, and hey, it got Nanny to get into the spotlight for the first time ever. And really,
where she deserves.
People have been saying it for years. Well, Zeb, thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Of course.
Get it!